You frequently speak about brainwashing, the difference between now and the past. What is the difference?
The difference, unfortunately, is that a lot of young Americans, a lot of students, uh, self brainwash themselves. Nobody has to brainwash them, they do it to themselves. Now, they are brainwashed right from early childhood as soon as they watch TV as children, looking at children's programs. There's propaganda in there all the time. And so they grow up surrounded by propaganda, which innocent is brainwashing uh, at school, uh, and as they go further up the ladder, it becomes more and more and more and more present until they get to college, and then you could take a course in mathematics, and you somehow end up finding about something that's wrong with the country, and so on. And so they really get brainwashed on every side. But then to make it worse, they somehow have become convinced that they should brainwash themselves, which means, in effect, to not listen to any other side except the prevailing one at the school. And so they're self brainwashing. And it's about the stupidest thing that a person can do. In other words, the last thing in the world you want to do is to not listen to the other side, because that's what you're going to have to live with. And that's what makes you smart. When you can understand how the other guy thinks, what the other guy thinks. By the way, he may not have any good ideas, but on the other hand, maybe he does have some good ideas. Maybe it's not going to take apart your belief system, but you may pick up here or here. Or maybe you're going to change your mind. And what's so sad about it is they shout down people who come in with a different point of view when they should be listening to them. And I just keep thinking that Joe Stalin and Adolf Hitler and Mao Zedong and Fidel Castro, all these guys that have run these communist and fascist dictatorships, they must be so jealous of what's happening today. They had complete control of everything that was printed, everything that was on the airways, everything that was taught, every book in the library. They had them set up so that their young people would never hear the other side of the story. And to back that up, they had a secret police, and they had the gulags, so that if somebody tried to get the other side, they were risking going to the gulag, the concentration camps. And yet our kids are willing to do all that, and nobody has secret police to throw them in the Huskow and send them to the gulag. They do it to themselves, and that's, how dumb can you be? Mark Twain said the biggest failure of man is his inability to look at things through the eyes of other people. And so these kids have completely cut themselves off from that possibility. And by the way, there's another phase of it. I was very anti-Soviet. I dedicated my whole life to fighting the Soviet Union and to destroy the Soviet Empire before it conquered the world. I thought that was the gravest threat that mankind had ever. For God's sake, we're going to have a scientific dark age. And so I was one of those that really dedicated themselves to that. And to do my job well in that struggle, I read all their stuff. The last thing I wanted to do is to cut myself off from hearing their arguments. I wanted to hear their arguments. I wanted to read why they had. I used to listen on short wave to Radio Moscow and all of the communist stations in East Europe, and on a regular basis. If I had time to only watch one newscast, and if I had access to a short wave, I'd listen to Radio Moscow before I'd listen to my own news services. Because if I'm going to fight the Soviet Union, I want to know what they think about, how they're dealing with it. And so these kids are just stopping getting this kind of information. And by the way, the incredible thing is that the average kid of college student age in communist Russia, in the Soviet Union, the average kid out there that had any interest in politics knew more about the truth than some of our kids. It blows me away how much they knew. Somehow they would find out things that the government was trying to keep them from knowing anything about, and they found out about it, and they exchanged it with themselves. And one great example, I was talking to a group of kids, and I had gotten in, and that's what so many of our journalists and other visitors didn't do. They never worked their way in so that the kids were willing to really open up. If you ask a young person or anybody in the Soviet Union, how do you like the government? The answer was, we think it's great, because they would be in big trouble if they said anything else. And our people came back so stupid that they didn't realize that, of course, they told you. They come back and say, well, everybody seems pretty happy with the guy. Yeah, they're pretty happy in front of you because they don't want to go to the gulag. But what you had to do is you had to kind of convince them, not directly but indirectly, that you were not going to write about what they're saying and get them in trouble and so on. And I got pretty good at that. And I got to know how these kids thought. And I was talking to a group of them, and at one point I said, and what do you plan to do when you graduate? And one of the kids said, just matter-of-factly, he said, well, I'm going to become a novelist. And then they can screw me like they did Boris Pasternak. And so here the Soviet Union, with all their power, is trying to get people from knowing anything about Boris Pasternak, the author of Dr. Zhivago. And yet these kids knew all about it. And by the way, I censored that, what he said. It was not precisely that way, but I used a better word than he did. But it's just such a wonderful example of how they managed to know more over there than our kids over here, who have been brainwashed, who don't want to know the other side.